This is Spoiler Country, a podcast about comics, movies, whatever, but mostly comics. Enjoy.
Previously on Spoiler Country.
There's a lot of independent comic books and artists and writers on Kickstarter, and there's a lot of cool stuff on there. And so we like to troll around in there and see what's going on and see what's up. And we've been known to back some things a time or two.
Welcome back to Spoiler Country. I am John Horsey over here doing the intro this time, and over there is Kenric Regan. Last time, or episode or two ago, we talked about investing. Tonight, we're going to talk about a little more of that. We touched on a couple topics on investing. We talked about why we invest, what we look for a little bit here and there. We talked about kind of what we look for when we invest a little bit, and kind of went off on some tangents, but didn't quite give you kind of the nitty gritty of here's how you get into comic investing. Here's what to look for when you buy comics, and if you're looking to invest for the future or looking to build that college fund for your kid by buying comics like my dad did. So we're going to kind of dive more into that tonight and talk about what we look for to get the value out of them.
That's almost impossible, though. Let's just be clear. You're not going to buy it. You most likely, unless you're doing the big ticket items like Superman 1 and Detective Comics number 27, you're not buying any houses or paying for college with this.
No. What my dad's thought process was, he'd buy these little collections of books he liked, give them to the grandkids, and then by the time the grandkids were going to college, which would be 10, 20 years later, his investment of a couple hundred to $1,000 in like 2003 would turn out to be $10,000, $20,000 for them to help them with college or getting a car, or whatever they need to at the time. So that was his thought process.
That's your hope.
Yeah, that's the hope. I mean, obviously it's investing, so it can go both ways,
right?
But
we're going to talk about how we get into finding the books that we actually want to buy. It's not always just I really want this book because I grew up with it, or I'm thinking about this character and I really like that character. Sometimes there's more into it when I have the specific idea that I think I'm going to buy these because I think they're going to be worth more money later down the road, and they're nothing right now. And then also we're going to talk about what it takes, not what it takes, but when the proper time to sell a book is.
Because that's a hard question.
That's the hardest question to answer, and we're probably both wrong. We might be right, but we're going to give you our insight into it. Two guys that have been collecting for quite a long time. And wheeling and dealing for quite a long time. So let's, take it with a grain of salt.
Take it with a grain of salt. I mean, obviously, if you have questions or anything we say, hit us up on Twitter. We'll happily respond to you and give us our thoughts of what we got wrong. Because ultimately, this is a conversation. We talk about it, and if you want to join the conversation, hit us up.
Yeah. So, Johnny, tell me, you want to buy a book right now, and you're thinking, your mentality is not, I like this series, but you're buying books specifically to hopefully get a return on the investment. What goes through your mind when you do that?
So initially what goes through my mind is what I'm looking for a hot commodity right now? Is it slowly gaining traction, or do I think it's going to gain traction in the future? Or is it something that was just very popular that is now slowly getting less popular that I think might go back up in popularity in, say, 5 years? If I can answer, yes to any of those questions, I look at it like, let's take Squirrel Girl, for example, right? Yeah. Squirrel Girl was nothing for a long time. Her first appearance is in Marvel Winter Special number 7 or 8, one of those two. I have a copy of it somewhere, but I have it. It's like 7 or 8, right? It has Wolverine on the front of it.
Yeah, I don't remember. It's a big It
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's an example, right? But she was worth nothing for a long time. All of a sudden, her character got very, very popular, and her book went from being $5 to being $40, $50, $60, depending on what condition you had in, whether or not it was the newsprint version versus the direct edition version, which is a whole other topic we can get into, which we might touch on this one because it's a conversation I've had with lots of collectors, and it's a very touchy topic about newsprint versus, or not newsprint, but newsstand edition versus the direct edition.
Real quick, it was Marvel Superheroes number 8.
Oh, Marvel Superheroes?
Yep.
Okay. And so like that book, when she started getting popular, I was like, okay, I want that book for a couple of reasons. One, she's gonna go up in value because she's an obscure character that's getting traction now with the current state of politics, and except people are shooting for equality and diversity in this country. That's her character is gonna be that. Her character is she's a quirky, ridiculous character that's a little chunky and not quite the normal superhero beauty of a character, right? She's got these crazy powers, she can summon an infinite number of squirrels, or whatever you want to say. She's becoming popular among female collectors, which is, I'm not going to say that's a new part of comic collecting. I'm going to say that's a new outspoken part of comic collecting, because for a long time, a lot of the female readers and collectors were quiet about what they did and what they liked. They weren't open because, let's be honest, it wasn't in any time, being a female nerd wasn't necessarily a cool thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now that it's more accepted, you have a lot of these girls who are cosplaying as Squirrel Girl. They're petitioning for a Squirrel Girl to be in a movie or a TV show, or she's showing up in cartoons and games and stuff. So you see her, that character, getting more popular everywhere. So you look at that and I say, okay, what's it? What are people asking for that book right now? So when I'm trying to buy a book, and because I bought a copy of that book when it went up, because I'll be honest, I didn't know who the hell Squirrel Girl was until she became getting popularity. I was like, oh, that's a cool character. I mean, she's ridiculous, but I like the concept of infinite number of squirrels and just her reaction, or not her reaction, but her interaction with the squirrels that she has. Like, if you read Ryan North's The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl comic from a couple years ago, it's incredibly funny and it's very good.
Yeah, she's a really popular character right now, and they just announced the TV show that she's going to be on. I can't remember the name of it. It's not the Squirrel Girl show, but she's going to be on like a team show, and I can't remember. And it's the girl that is the AT&T girl on the commercials, and she's all over the place right now.
Yeah, which is cool. So I honestly think she's going to be great for the role as far as the acting wise goes. She's a little too pretty for what people usually say Squirrel Girl looks like, but it's, again, that's fine. I don't care. She will do a great job, I think.
Yeah,
to be honest.
And just so people have an understanding, I'm the same way. I start looking. So what I do is I look at current events when it comes to what people are trending about when it comes to comic books, right? Like, all of a sudden you saw Gwenpool everywhere. I thought to myself, well, I should probably look into what this Gwenpool character is all about. And then went back and I got what is considered her first appearance, which is Howard the Duck #1. And I picked that up for $10, right? But you have to have a forward thought process going on. You can't just, because if you're reactive, then you're going to spend $100 for Howard the Duck #1, which is ridiculous,
Versus 10.
Right, versus 10. And when you look at Squirrel Girl now, I bought it. I thought about it the same way a couple years ago when I started noticing all the cosplayers dressing up as the Incredible Squirrel Girl, and realizing, one, she's created by Steve Ditko, which is a really good thing to have.
She is? I didn't know that.
Yeah, she's created by Steve Ditko. And two,
that's pretty cool.
She won't die. You know what I'm saying? There has been times where she was not used, but for some reason Marvel has kept this character around for a long time, and they have constantly put her in like I think that was, it wasn't the West Coast Avengers, but it was like I can't remember. It was an obscure
The New Warriors
magazine.
She's part of the New Warriors.
Well, yeah. Now she is, but she was part of the Avengers too. But it was obscure Avenger. Run.
It was Great Lake GLA, Great Lake Avengers. She was in.
Yep, exactly. Yep. She was in that, and now her book, for a very fine near mint, sold for $80.
Yeah, and it's insane, and she's a character that she's obscure, and say 20, 30 years from now, that book's going to be like, it's like an Iron Fist, the time, a character that gets popular, but then kind of doesn't really fade away, kind of just fades into being a normal character. Let's say she goes out of popularity in 5 years. Well, 20 years from now, she'll probably come back because there's a lot about that character that's going to be there. So I look at things like, does this character have longevity? And even if she doesn't, characters that get a spike will spike up, they'll level down a little bit, but they'll always stay higher than they were pre-spike. Right. So you can always you always better get your money back. You never want to buy at the peak.
Right.
Ever.
Right. And I've made the mistake of buying at the peak, thinking that wasn't the peak. And that's the other thing you got to do too, is you look, and a great way to really get an understanding of what people are paying for it is to go to eBay and use the filtering and filter by sold and look what people are actually paying for these books. Don't go by a guide, because the guide is always it's like what it is just a guide. It doesn't mean
it's a guide, and it's not accurate. It's not accurately updated to the current time and date.
Right.
And people, I don't know, eBay is probably the #1 resource to find prices in there, because you'll see surges and you'll see lulls in the price, and you take an average from that. And let me tell you a quick story, and this isn't going to be quick at all. When I say quick, I'm lying completely. But
let me tell you a quick story. 30 minutes later.
Pretty much. So several years ago, in about 2013 or so, I had the IFTD thing on my phone for Craigslist ads back in Kitsap County for comic books, and one came through, and it was like, I think it was like 20 short boxes of comic books. It was mostly all newer stuff from like 2010 to the current time. It had all the New 52 variants in it. It had all the Marvel variants. I mean, this guy was collecting to invest, but his way of collecting to invest was to buy one copy or two copies of every book plus all the variants, and then also buy some CGC books too. What I did with him is I went over and looked at him. He wanted $1,100 for all of the books. I went over there, and before I even went over there, I said, hey, look, I don't have $1,100, but let me come over and look at the books. We'll talk about what you have in value-wise. I have experience selling books, and maybe we can work out a deal where I sell the books for you, give you all the money, and I'll keep some of the books that I want to keep out of this. And he's like, okay, well, we'll talk about that. So I went to his house. Cody and I, my son, at the time, he was like, 12 or something. We drove to his house. We sat there, and I spent like 2 hours at this guy's house with him and his girlfriend, just going through all of his comics, looking at what he had, looking at, kind of talking to him about the market, talking to him about buying and selling comic books, showing him, okay, look, you have, these issues here, which are, worth money, and they will stay worth money because of what they are. They're a first appearance, they're a first in a series, they're some kind of a milestone in the comic, or because of our current market and place of comic books right now, it's they're a variant that's a 1 in 100 or 1 in 250, because he had a lot of the 1 in 100 variants for Marvel, which was crazy. And I could tell him he'd put a lot of money into this, and I told him right up front, I'm like, look, you bought things at the peak, you bought things at market value to invest for the future, and you're selling now. And so I told him, you're not going to get your money back on these. I guarantee you that no matter how you sell them, and even when you ask $1,100 for them, that's less than you paid for me. It's like, well, yeah, I paid a lot more for them. Now I'm just trying to sell them quick because I'm moving. He was in the Navy. I was like, look, let's do this. I gave him all my information. I gave him my place of business where I worked. I gave him the contact information for my work. I'm like, look, you can trust me. I'm honest. Just everything you need. Let me take the books. I will sell them for you, and I guarantee you'll make more than $1,100 on this. I'll keep out of it what I want, and then I'll just give you all the money. Because at the time, honestly, I didn't care about making money off of them, and it was kind of stupid, but he had a lot of books that I wanted to keep. So I was like, I'll just keep these like 4 or 5 boxes of the DC books, and I'll sell all your Marvel and other stuff and give you the money for it. And basically what it meant is I did some work, and I got 4 or 5 boxes of free comics, which I was happy with.
Right, and he was okay with that.
Yeah, and he after talking to him and his girlfriend decided, you know what? You seem like a trustworthy guy, and I'm actually still friends with him on Facebook, and we still talk sometimes.
Oh, that's cool.
And yeah, he's a great guy. He's an instructor in the Navy at West Point, not West Point, but one of those places over on the East Coast,
right?
Whatever it's called. So I took him from him, and I brought him back to the house, and I did research. I said, all right, give me a month to do all the research on all these books, because you have a lot of books, and if I'm going to sell them for you, I want to get you the most amount of money and make you the most profits, because you have good books in here. Because he didn't have the only thing he had a series run of was Green Lantern, because he was a huge Green Lantern fan,
right?
So he had Green Lantern Corps, Green Lantern, Red Lanterns, New Guardians, all the New 52 Green Lantern stuff. He had all of them, all covers, everything for the entire series up until when I was there for the first 2 years, pretty much, of New 52. So everything else, though, he had first appearances, variant covers, #1 issues, things that he thought would be key for whatever reason, like the Joe Quesada 1 in 100 variant for Captain America and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I took them all, and what I did is I made this giant spreadsheet, and this is what anybody can do. They want to invest in comic books, or they want to buy and sell them and kind of make a little profit out of it, or find what they want to do. I made a spreadsheet, and what I did is I'm in this spreadsheet I put the name of every issue, and then the issue number of every issue, and like what variant it was, kind of what its denomination was, and then I went to eBay. And I made a high column and I made a low column, and I searched for that issue and that variant cover, whatever it was, and I put the lowest that book had sold for in the last 2 months, and then I put the highest that book had sold for in the last 2 months. Now, if that book, and I did it all without grading, no graded books, because that gives you into a whole new world of pricing, and none of his books were graded. So as we've talked about before, you can't say, oh, I'm going to sell you this book in this grade, if it was graded, is $200, but it's not graded, so give me $200 for it. That's not how it works, So
right.
I did a high and a low column, and then I used Excel to make a magical column next to it that would average it out. So then I could say, okay, this book, this cover sold for $20 on the low end and $50 on the high end, so it averages it out. So there's my average price there. So that way I knew about what every book was worth, generally speaking. And what I did with that is I took that, I sent out to him and said, hey, here's about what we can expect to make off of this. It's going to take me a few months to do this because of how many books there are. I'll start working on this now. So I had that huge spreadsheet of all the books, and I actually still have some of the books because I didn't sell them all because some of them wouldn't sell. But what did kind of upset me now that I look back, I'm not upset, but it kind of makes me go, oh man, is he had in there a short run of Saga 1 through 10 with 6 copies of Saga #1.
Oh, and he wanted to keep those?
Yeah. And they were part of the deal at first, and he was like, okay, well, it's fine, And the last meeting, he's like, I really want to keep those sagas. And I was like,
yeah, well, that's smart.
It was smart. I was like, okay, but I mean, you got to realize you're taking several $100s out of the ability to sell stuff. So, the whole quote unquote requirement of what I'm going to make you back, because we set a minimum. Like the minimum was like I think it was $1,400 was the minimum that I told him to get back.
Right.
Bare minimum that.
Right.
And so he took those out and said, all right, we're going to count that as $300. So it's back. We're back at $1,100 minimum.
Yeah.
He said, okay. He goes, you know what? Just make it $1,000 minimum and I'll be happy. I'm like, okay. So he gave me $400 quote unquote value, which those books are worth more than that now. But you know, whatever.
Yeah, number one is like $200 right now.
Right. And there was 6 of those in there. But anyways.
Yeah.
It was a gentleman's deal, right? You know, a handshake deal, which was really fun, and it ended up being a lot of fun for Cody and me to go through all these books and kind of like, you know, organize them and sort them and get them ready to be sold and sell them. What I used that research for in that spreadsheet was to figure out, what do I start the bids at? Because I'm the kind of person that if I'm selling comics to try and make a profit, I'm going to start my bid lower than what other people have it as to drive interest. Because if everybody's selling it for $30, I'm going to put it up for $25. Because someone's going to bid on mine fast, and it's going to go above 30 real quick.
Yeah. You didn't use the buy it now feature at all?
I did on some.
You did on some. So when you're selling your books and you're deciding which one, how do you decide which gets a bid and which gets a buy now?
Books that have a high variance at the high end of selling. So if a book will sell between like $40 to $100 depending on the time of day, that's not going to get a buy it now. But books that consistently sell for between like a $15 to $20 range, I'll throw a buy it now on that, because if it's going to be a consistent sell at say $50, I'll throw it up for a $45 buy it now and sell it in a day or two.
Right.
But if it's a book it's a hot book, it's a first appearance book that can go sell for 80 one day or 120 the next day, depending on who's looking, that I'm not going to put a buy it now on that, because I'm going to lose money on that.
Right.
You know, you can say that's arbitrary. People can say that's, you know, it's all a matter. It is a matter of opinion. So a lot of the times it's what's your gut feeling on how this book's going to sell. And honestly, a lot of the books he had, I was like, these aren't going to sell. No one's going to buy this stuff.
Right.
And I was shocked about, he actually did a really good job of buying books that if he wanted to go through and sell them individually, he could have made a ton of money. In that lot was, you know, all of the Batman New 52 stuff, the variants and everything, all the Justice League variants from New 52 that at the time were worth a ton of money.
So did he have more, was he DC heavy or Marvel heavy?
It was Marvel heavy. He just happened to have a lot of Green Lantern as well as Justice League and Batman.
What was his top selling books?
He had a lot of the 1/100 and 1/250 variants from Marvel from like the 2010 to 2012 range, the Captain Americas, the Death of Captain America, a lot of those series books. And there was actually some of the independents he had that sold for pretty good money too, because he had like Mind Management and the sagas that I didn't get. But like everything that came out, everything that was hot in Image and independent in like 2010, 2012, he had them, and he had multiple copies of them in there.
Wow. Yeah,
I was able to take those, and ultimately what it came down to is I ended up giving him, I think altogether sold, I kept the books that I wanted, and I gave him like $1,500 total.
Wow.
And
so you overperformed.
Yeah, which I told him I would.
Yeah.
So I gave him $1,500, and I was like, I said, here's the money now. I still have books left that I haven't got to. And he ultimately goes, you've given me more than I expected, to keep the rest. So I ended up getting a lot more books. Like that $1,500 only came out of about maybe 35 to 40% of the comics that I got from him. So I still had 50 to 60% of the books left.
Wow.
That he said, just go ahead and keep them, because he ended up getting more money from me doing it that way than him just straight selling them.
Well, for him, he didn't have to do any work. He was good to go. He was happy.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing too, is making sure that when you do sell stuff, you know, I mean, you can't please everybody. You know? No,
you can't.
You can make sure that what you sell is exactly what you say you are selling.
Exactly. And be honest. You know, I like to pride myself on being an honest, straightforward person, especially when it comes to buying and selling comics. I'm never going to try and rip somebody off. And if somebody asks me what a book's worth, I'll tell them, and I'll say, you know, your book's worth $100, but the most I'm willing to pay for it for you is, you know, say 50 or 60, because that's my max in the book, and you can take it or leave it. I'm not going to be upset if you say no, well, it's worth 100. I'm going to say, okay, fine. Yeah. Go sell it yourself.
Yep. Go sell it yourself. That's exactly right. Get on there and try to figure that out.
Yeah, that was the key thing about my dad and my business, because my dad and I did all the buying and selling pretty much for the business we had from 01 to 2007, is we would go out and we were straight up honest with people. Our thing is in the beginning, we would offer the information to them, but that ended up becoming more problematic, because a lot of people, once you tell them, okay, once you offer the information of this book was worth $120, I want 120 for it. Okay, well, that's not how this works.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, you can learn that just by watching those pawn shows on A&E or in History.
Exactly.
It's like, what are you thinking? You got to make a profit.
Yeah. So we would go out and look at comics, and we would say, okay, you have, you know, they'd say, this is what they have. We'd always ask the question, what do you want for the comics? And they would, if they gave us a number and it was within our range, we would usually just pay them what they wanted if what they had made sense. If they asked us, what are these comic books worth? What do you think these are worth? We would tell them because, one, we're honest people, and that's what an honest person should do. If somebody asks you what it's worth and you should tell them. And two, if you don't, you're breaking the law. It's called theft by deception. You shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And the key point of that is there's a comic book store in Seattle that did that back in the 90s and got in a whole lot of trouble for it.
Oh, wow.
And it's a wonderful story. They did a theft by deception on someone on an Action Comics number 2.
Did they do it on purpose? I mean...
Oh, God, yes.
Was it,
oh, God,
but
yes.
was it the company that did it, or was it the guy behind the counter?
It was the guy who owned the store.
Interesting. And he's still the owner?
I have no idea.
Oh.
But I know basically what happened is somebody came in with an Action Comics number 2 they had got from like their uncle or something. They acquired a copy of Action Comics 2. They took it in. He asked the question, "What is this worth?" The guy told him a value of, like, let's just say, I don't remember the numbers. Let's say he said, "Oh, it's worth $2,000," right?
Right.
When in reality it was worth $20,000. He said, "It's worth $2,000. I'll give you $1,000 for it," because he already had it sold to a collector somewhere for $20,000.
Comic book stores that big already have investors that say, "This comes in, tell me I'm buying it that day."
Right. But he said, the guy asked what it's worth, and he said, "Oh, it's only worth $2,000. I'll give you $1,000 for it," or whatever. And so he gave him the $1,000, gave him the book. They, he went and sold it, and then later on, the guy found out that he had lied to him about the value of the book.
Yeah.
And he ended up getting a lawyer and taking him to court. What ended up happening is this comic book store had to give him back he had to keep the money, and he got the book back, and the store was out the money and the book. And because it's theft by deception, and it's illegal.
Yeah.
So not only is it the right thing to do if somebody asks you what it's worth, it's also the law. So don't break it.
Well, yeah, but when it comes to, that is an obvious statement, though, right? It's, you say 1,000, you say 2,000, and then, but it's worth 20,000, and it's that particular book, then it's obvious. But if it's like Saga number 1, and you tell somebody it's worth $100 and it's worth 200, then there's a gray area there.
There's obviously a margin of error, right? If you say 2,000, it's worth 2,100. It's not going to. That's totally different. Right. That's why whenever I'm asked a question, I say, in my best opinion, it's worth around this much, and I give them my honest opinion on that.
Yeah, I do the same thing, but then I tell them how to look it up.
Yeah,
and
you can say exactly. Here's how you can look it up yourself. So, anyways, that's why I think if you're going to buy and sell anything, you should be honest about it. That's kind of my opinion. But the whole point of that story was to kind of give an example of how I determine values of books. Is I use eBay because eBay is a snapshot in time of what that book is worth right now.
It's a barometer.
Yeah, exactly. And I can see what the lowest it sells for and what the highest it sells for. I use that to determine when I'm buying books what I think I should pay for that. And I will tell you this: I am very good about never paying full price for a book. If a book's worth $250 and I say, okay, I'm not going to pay more than $75 for it, I guarantee you, if I really want the book, I'll find one for less than $75. Because I've done that many times.
Well,
many times.
But it's a different mentality, though, dude. Right? When you're in investing mode and you're thinking, how do I make money off these books? Then it's a completely different mentality, and that's why when you go to somebody and you say, "Hey, I'll offer this," and they're wondering how much is this book worth, and you say it's 120, but I'm only going to give you 60, because you already know in your mind that you're going to sell it. But if it's a book that you really want and you covet, and you're going to keep it, then my mentality change. I don't know about you, but my mentality changes at that point, right?
Well, I treat both the same way to an extent. And here's an example, because Gotham City Sirens is now a hot book because of Harley Quinn, and they announced the Gotham City Sirens movie. That book went from being that book number 1 went from being $20 to being $100, and then
is it really selling for that much?
Oh God, yes.
I bought it for like $12, just like not even maybe a year ago.
Yeah, at Emerald City last year, it was selling for $80 or between $50 to $80 at every booth I could find, and at a comic book store I was at in Kent 2 weeks ago, they had one on the back wall for $98. And Detective Comics number 855, which is the first appearance of Gotham City Sirens, which is kind of odd because it's 3 characters that have already been in existence. It is the first time they appeared together as a team, I guess. Went from being a $5 book or less everywhere you go to now it's, $20, $30. I think sometimes it sells up to $50. I noticed that, and my wife being a huge Harley Quinn fan and me being a big Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy and Catwoman fan too, I was like, oh, I'm going to get these books for my collection, but I'm not going to pay that for it. I'm going to pay way less. I ended up finding 2 or 3 copies of Detective 855, and I paid less than $5 for each of them when they were actively selling for $30 at the time. And I picked up 2 copies of Gotham City Sirens #1, which and this was at Emerald City, where they were selling at booths for $80 a piece or $75 a piece at the time. I bought each one of them for $20 a piece at booths at Emerald City, because I went around and found booths. Because one thing you do when you're trying to find books, you look for booths that may not be up to the times on what books are worth, or may have books priced from like 4 or 5 cons ago still. And you look through that and you find that, and you pull out the gems and you pay them what they want for it, and everybody's happy. They're getting the money they want out of it, and you're getting a book you really want. I mean, you can say it's not really dishonest, because they're getting exactly what they asked for it, right? I find stuff I like, and even when I'm buying it for my collection, I'm like, I'm not gonna. I mean, it's just me. I don't want to pay full price for a book. I mean, because I have 5 kids and I'm cheap. I got a lot of mouths to feed. I gotta feed my collection just on the cheap.
I always think of the movie, was the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie on Mars, Total Recall.
Oh yeah,
and the guy with the drill. I got 5 mouths to feed.
So that's who I am.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting way. I like how you talk about creating the spreadsheet and then doing a variance between, not a variant, a variance between 2 months of highs and lows. So that way you can hit that middle ground, so that people are like,
right,
that makes sense, I'm going to buy that. And that you have to look at the book, decide of what you think is the best near mint, fine, very fine. And you have to be honest with yourself of what that condition is. Because if you sit there and you put near mint and somebody gets it in and you got tick up the ass on the spine, you're gonna get some blowback, man. So you got to be really honest with what you think that condition is, and you have to be willing to back that up. And then from there you can say, okay, here's the price. I'm gonna try to sell this book now.
And see.
Yeah, and I think eBay is a really good place to sell your books, but there's a lot of people that don't like, the percentages they take out and all that kind of stuff. But there is Facebook groups for selling your books as well, correct?
Yeah, oh yeah, there are. I've actually started using some of those recently, but they could be a little more or less problematic, because some people who collect comics, or some people in general, are very pretentious and very argumentative about everything. Especially on Facebook.
Right.
But I have had some success selling stuff on there. I've had some success trading stuff on there. For my money though, I really kind of like selling them on eBay, because I don't want to meet up in person with people. That's just my thing. Unless it's like a big trade, or I'm buying or selling a lot of books. I don't really want to meet you. I just want to get the money from you and send you a book.
So what do you think is better, selling individual books or selling runs? What do you prefer to sell?
I actually prefer to sell, if I'm going to eBay, I prefer to sell books in lots, unless it's a key or a milestone issue, because
first appearances, deaths.
Yeah. Because in lots, if you sell 10
Plot
Batman
twist.
books or whatever, it's a lot easier to ship them,
Yeah. So I like to buy in runs, because a lot of times you can still find key books in a run that includes the book. And the people actually give you a better deal, because they don't want to they want to sell the key, but they're stuck with all these books that go around it, and they just want to get the money for the key, but they don't, they don't want the rest of the books. Okay.
Nope, they don't.
But that is a way for you to purchase a key book for a cheaper price. You just have to deal with those extra books. And that happens a lot, actually. That's how I got all the Why the Last Man, because I was willing to buy the whole thing. Now, if you listen to the last episode or the episode before, I think it was the last episode, you'll learn that I almost paid way more money than I should have.
Right. A lot more money.
Right. But at the same time, those first 10 issues are all key, because you introduced all the first appearances for all those characters.
Yeah, and it's also a really good series, too.
Yeah, it's a really good series, too. Don't get me wrong. I bought it for the series, not just for the thing. But I'm just using it as a point that I got a lot of key issues because I bought the run as a whole. I paid less than just if I went individually for each book by itself from one, or from, I won't say one because I didn't get first printing number 1, but from number 2 to number 10, I paid less for the entire series than if I would have bought all those individually.
Right, and you will when you buy runs. See, when I was heavily buying comic books a few years ago, when I was in my crazy I'm going to buy everything in the fucking world mode, I would look on eBay for lots of sales. I would look on eBay for people who weren't comic book sellers but had comic books to sell, that were in, here's a lot of 50 comic books, or here's 25 books, whatever. And I would look through and find lots that had key issues in them and buy them usually for a lot cheaper than I could ever buy that one book by themselves. I would take out the books that I wanted, and then I would repost the rest of the books in lots that I would make and sell those. And I actually kept a very detailed spreadsheet because I'm a super nerd like that. And of what I would pay for books on average. If I bought a lot of, 100 books for $10, I would put that in my, put that into my thing as I bought the books for 10 cents a piece, or, whatever it was. And I would keep track of, what I sold stuff for and what I bought stuff for. And then I would say, okay, essentially I'm keeping books, and essentially I've got all these new books that I got paid to get, because I've now made more money off the other books because my cost per book is so low. And I've made, by combining lots from various things I've bought, I may have paid $100 for this lot of books and pulled out 4 books, but then combined those books, made $200 with other stuff for a total cost to me of $120 or whatever.
Yeah.
To where essentially I'm getting books I want and getting money and profits off of it as well. Because the way I always justified buying comic books to my wife, because if you have a wife or a significant other and you have kids, unless you're very rich, they always want to know why you're buying silly comic books or why you're buying, all this stuff all the time. But if you can say, hey, look, I'm buying it, keep them what I want, they're basically free, and I'm making money off of it, it becomes a no-brainer, and it's not an issue.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's fun. It's a lot of work. I don't do it so much anymore. I do have a bunch of books I'm going to be posting on eBay to sell here pretty soon, because I have a bunch of books I just want to get rid of. But I don't do the buying and selling stuff that much right now, because I have so much other crap that I'm doing with the books that I'm drawing and writing, the podcast that we're doing right now, actually, and all the other stuff. I'd rather be doing that stuff right now than buying and selling comic books. It's, it ebbs and flows, where, I know in a couple of years I'll probably do it again because it's fun.
Yeah, it's good.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to find the gems and sell them, but it's still fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of work. And then you got to go through each thing very carefully and then decide what you want to get, and if you really want to spend the money and all that fun stuff. But when you go through and you find and you do the research, Squirrel Girl, for example, like you brought up before, and you do the research and you hit, you know what I mean? Like you hit on that book, you bought it for 10, and all of a sudden, not even a year later, it's trading at 100. It feels kind of cool. It
feels really good.
Yeah, man. I just got some endorphins just now when you said Gotham City Sirens was going for $100, because I literally bought that like a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, for like $12 on eBay.
Yeah,
and it was
and now it's worth a ton.
Yeah, it was mint, and I'm just like, oh, sweet. And then you're sitting there, turn around saying, oh, it's like trading for like $100, and that, now it's a key issue I didn't even know I had.
Right, exactly, and that's what's fun about it.
Well, I knew. I bought it on purpose because I knew it was Gotham City Sirens, and I knew that. And I knew that the concept was cool. I knew that people were getting into it. I knew that, right now, a great group to actually listen to on if you want to invest in the right book is the women. Because I think that women today are buying and selling and advocating and creating things in the comic book industry more now than ever before. I feel like that's how it is. Or maybe it's just more open now than ever before, which is great.
Well, that, and you double that with the fact that not only that they're creating more stuff, but a good percentage, if not, I think it's over 50% now of the readers of comic books are women.
Yeah, see? That is awesome.
Oh, and I should correct myself. The first appearance of Gotham City Sirens is not 855. That's the first redo of Batwoman. It's 850. My apologies.
Okay. Well, I have the first appearance of Gotham City Sirens, so I'm happy either way.
Right. Yeah.
So that's interesting. I'm trying to figure out how to formulate this question in my head. When you think about selling books, and I know that there could be things that happen in your life that forces you to make change, forces you to sell, right? It's not always because you think it's the best move to make at this point in time, because you have to think about, when you go to sell a book, and let's throw that out the window. I don't want to talk about, my car broke down, I need to sell some books, or a kid needs braces or whatever, because that's just life that forces you to do some things you don't always want to do. That happens.
I've been there many times.
Yeah. And the way you deal with that is you do exactly what Johnny said to do. Create a spreadsheet of the books you want to sell, do the variances between plus or minus 2 months of highs and lows, and then get them up on eBay, and you'll probably sell them pretty quickly. If you do it that way and you follow that type of formula, you'll probably do a really good job of getting rid of them, even when you have to do it in a very quick manner because of life. Throwing that aside, how do you look at a book and say, okay, it was hot for a minute. I think it's going to fall. I need to sell this now because I'm going to lose money, or I don't believe in the character or the storyline or the book in itself enough that's going to keep this going. Like, for example, in the 80s, there was a character that Marvel had called Longshot, and his mutant power was luck. And that guy was amazingly popular, okay? Like, really popular. Like, ridiculously popular, okay?
And who is he now?
Exactly. And they did this weird thing, like everybody wanted Longshot. Every single book that Longshot was in the X-Men, what just kept ticking up. And they had a mini-series. His mini-series in like 1988 was selling for like $30 for number one, $60 for number one, and $30 for the rest. That's ridiculous then. Okay? Then they, for some reason, Marvel basically had him go back to this like TV world. I can't remember everything, so I apologize. But they basically didn't kill the character, but they killed the character in the fact that he was just gone all of a sudden. And then now,
that sucks.
Go back and you could pick up the Longshot miniseries for like $10.
Even less than that. I can't tell you how many times I've got that Longshot miniseries in random boxes of comics that I bought in lots from people,
and
where it was in there.
Dude, and somebody my age that collected comics in the 80s will remember the Longshot series and how popular it really was. And it is crazy to think that it is beyond cheap now. And it is weird. You know what I mean? But this happens. And there's other characters that this happens too. So what do you think? Or because like for me, it's hard to identify when that's happening. And I think it might be easier now because there could have been some kind of politicking going on behind the scenes that as the general public in the 1980s with Marvel would not have known, because there was nothing on the internet that was giving you any kind of information that was coming in or out of New York City, right? So who knows?
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what happened with Longshot. I don't know why they did what they did. They brought him back a couple years ago and did another miniseries, but no one knows who he is anymore, right? So they've kind of killed that. Yeah. They've kind of ruined that character in that regard.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, but how do you identify that and say, I better sell this book or I'm going to have another Longshot on my hands?
It's hard because if I'm buying, when I was doing more of the buying to resell and to make money and stuff, I would buy stuff that was like Deadpool. Deadpool got super hot, and he's still super hot. But his issue number one not issue number one, but his first appearance, New Mutants '98, has very much leveled out and actually gone down a little bit because people realized, oh hey, there's a shit ton of these books, and you know. At one point that book was going for over $500 by itself, and now it's leveled out to about $250, $300, sometimes even cheaper if you look hard enough for it. And it's curious. So what I usually do, and when I sold some books like this, is you buy a hot book, like let's say a great example of this is Edge of Spider-Verse #2, the first appearance of Spider-Gwen. It went from being cover price to within a week being a $50 book to being a $100 book to being $150, $200 very, very fast. Right now, it's about an $80 book. It went back down. So what I did is I bought it. I heard about the character in the Edge of Spider-Verse series coming out, and I realized, okay, Spider-Gwen, I took a look at her costumes. Okay, it's a cool costume. This is probably going to catch on. Everybody's already trying to make cosplays for it. So I bought into that book at about the $50 price range. It's like, okay, I feel like no matter what, in the next couple of years, this book's going to be at least worth about $50 because she's a hot character. It's not going to go away. Women are embracing this character, so we have the not just the men but the other sex, which is a huge driving force in what's being popularized right now, which is amazing. So, but that book went up and then it went back down, and I looked at that like, okay, she's brand new. It's going up because people are getting into the hype.
Right.
The hype's going to die down. So what I do is you look for, okay, where's the hype at right now? Is the hype still going up, or is the hype kind of leveling out or going down? If that hype is starting to level out to where people are still talking about it, but not necessarily talking about the character in the comic books, but more talking about the character as a cosplay, which is exactly what happened with her. The prices are leveling out. It went up to like 200, 250, then it went back down. It started going down. It's like, okay, it hit 250, it hit 200. It's starting to lower. So now is the time to, if I wanted to sell it, now is the time to sell it, because the hype is going down, or the hype is leveling out. So it's not really going to go up any further unless some other boost comes in, like a movie. They do a dramatic change with the character that people take on. I mean, anymore, once you have the first appearance, a death, or a reappearance, all the kinds of stuff after that are meaningless, because nobody dies in comic books. You die and you come back 2 months later and nobody cares. It used to be when somebody died in a comic book, that was a milestone. And like when Phoenix died, that was a big book, because the Dark Phoenix died. Or when Supergirl died in Crisis, or when the Flash died, they stayed dead for a while, not came back the next 2 days, or 2 issues. So you look for that hype. The hype. If the hype's going down, you sell.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But do you think DC started that trend when they brought Superman back so quickly?
It wasn't actually that quick, though. There were several months.
Yeah, several months
when he died. When he came back.
Yeah, but still months. That's the operative word there. Months, not years. Months.
No, but the death of Superman was never set up to be a long-term thing. Nobody ever expected that to be a long-term thing. It was set up to be.
The general public thought it was going to be a long-term thing. That's why you had lines out the door to buy that last book.
Nobody.
Well, you can say nobody, but dude, as a collector, as a comic book reader, you're right. But the general public, like my mom went down and bought that book for me because she thought it really was the death of Superman.
Yeah, but really, I mean, okay, your moms and grandmas aside, people who knew who Superman was and knew, hey, Superman's around 1939, but they're not going to kill him off forever.
I understand that. But take emotion out of it. This is not emotion.
There's no emotion in it.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because it sounds like you're getting mad about it when you're not listening to what I'm saying. And I'm being a dick on purpose because I want you to understand what I'm saying. It crossed boundaries at that point, right? It was a cultural crossing, generational crossing thing that happened when they produced that book. And I would love to see the numbers of how many they sold. I have no idea. I mean, I'm sure we can look it up. I just remember how much hype it was, and then how many people were standing in line to buy that book. And I remember people who don't collect comic books, don't read comic books, going to get that book because it was the death of Superman. And then when he came back, I remember hearing people being pissed off that, wow, they didn't even take him a couple months and he's already back. I'm just saying, when I think of that, I'm wondering, did DC start a trend with people not wanting to wait? I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, how can you fucking wait at all to bring Superman back? It's fucking Superman, right? You can't have comic book history and comic book, the medium, without Superman being there. So how do you kill the person that starts it all?
Right.
No, totally get it.
I remember when this happened. I mean, I was 10 years old when this happened. And I remember because I was getting into comics, and just to answer your question, they sold 3 million copies of it. But
that's not even very money. Why did it seem like
the 90s?
Yeah, but X-Men did more. And then the fact that what you sent me today, like some of the numbers you sent today on Facebook, and maybe if you can remember them, you can repeat them. But like what Jimmy Olsen was selling for, or what Superman sold for in the 30s and 40s.
Within 2 years, Superman was selling 2.5 million copies a month, and the radio show that started in 1940 had 4 million listeners per episode.
That is so nutty. And if you think about how many people were lived in the United States, because I mean, let's be honest, 99% of that is all United States, right? How many people lived in the United States in 1939, 1940 compared to now? Right.
Oh, I know. It's a huge percentage of the population bought those books because Superman was a huge deal back then.
The percentage, that's the way to look at it right there. What's the percentage of people that were listening to Superman compared to what if you put that into perspective today?
Well, think about it. The Superman radio show had basically 12 million listeners a week.
Yeah.
Right? Because it was 3 times a week, and they only sold 3 million copies of The Death of Superman. But let me back up for a second. My point on the reason why I say that nobody that really knew anything, and I get what you're saying, but nobody really knew anything about, or not. How am I trying to say this?
Nobody really time, believed man. We got Superman, all the time in the world.
nobody really believed that Superman was going to stay dead because a lot of the, if you read, and I remember being in the stores with people and talking at 10 years old, talking about this, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
A lot of the conversation wasn't, oh, they're killing Superman, what are they doing next? It was, oh, they're killing Superman, how are they bringing him back? Because you had, because it was already there, by the time Superman died, there was already solicits out for the Funeral for a Friend series. And then by the time you got into that, the solicits were out for the Reign of the Superman, which was, bringing the 4 Supermen in. And then at the end of that, Superman comes back and, Superman's back. And, but he's a little different, a little edgier.
Yeah. That's not the conversations I remember having. And I was 16. And it wasn't. That's not what people were saying when that happened. That's not what I remember people talking about. I remember people literally thinking
right? Maybe
that
I could be totally wrong.
No,
I just remember at 10 years old, always thinking and talking to people at the store was with my dad was, they're quote unquote killing him, but it's only a matter of time before they bring him back because it's Superman. They're never gonna kill Superman for good.
Yeah. Well, at 10, you're forever
optimistic.
That's what I remember.
Yeah. Well,
and that's good. That's not a bad thing at all, dude. I'm not, that's a good thing. I'm just saying for my perspective, it was the shock that, oh my God, they killed Superman.
Right.
And then all of a sudden he's back and we're like, wait, what?
But it was, think about it. It was,
I'm sorry, dude, if I was a dick.
I'm actually curious.
I'm sorry if I was a dick to you. I just didn't want you to get riled up on something that
I wasn't getting riled
up.
I wasn't getting riled up.
All right. Well, it felt like it. Then I just felt like I was being a dick.
It's bullshit, Kenric.
I wanted to say sorry.
It's bullshit, Kenric.
It is bullshit.
That's my new phrase for that. It's bullshit, Kenric.
But let's just bring it back around though, right? So like Longshot, I just looked it up. His first appearance was that miniseries. Okay, number 1.
Was it?
Yeah, and check this out. He's the first notable works of Art Adams, who is one of the greatest artists ever.
Was he?
Yeah. And
dude, Art Adams' work is so good.
Yeah. And somebody just bought the complete set for $15 on eBay.
Insane.
It's insane.
Actually, you think about it, that's a good, I'm glad you brought up Longshot because that's actually one that might be a decent investment for someone to get. They get it cheap right now because that's probably a character that with the whole thing that Marvel's been doing with the TV shows and movie stuff, he'll probably have a resurgence in the next 10 years. Because if you think about what they've been doing with like the Inhumans and with all these other characters, they've been slowly pulling from their back catalog to bring characters they can use into the comic books and the TV show, into the movies, because they don't have use of like X-Men and all the other characters. I don't think Longshot would fall into the Fox deal because while he was in X-Men for a couple issues, he appeared in his own series first.
Yeah, but he was in X-Men for a long time, and he was.
What does it matter?
They considered the boyfriend of Dazzler.
Doesn't matter. Part of Marvel has Dazzler, so part of the deal with the different companies is, and the reason why you had Quicksilver in Avengers and in X-Men is because it doesn't matter what books necessarily they appeared in the most in. It matters where they first appeared and that character was defined in. And if Longshot has appeared in his own miniseries, unless they can argue that it was an X-Men miniseries, essentially, they might be able to use that character, and or even Fox might use it in one of their movies because they're looking for new characters to bring into the mix now because they can't use the same ones again over and over again because people are getting really tired of that.
Yeah. So
Longshot, because of the popularity in the 80s, might be one that comes back in the next 10, 15 years.
A lot of the storylines they're using for X-Men are all from the 80s, right?
Right, 80s, and they're just getting in the 90s now.
Yeah. So yeah, there you go, man. You heard it here first, folks.
Buy Longshot.
Buy Longshot. That's our lock of the week.
And if it doesn't work, blame Kenric.
That's right. You can blame me, even though I'm not the one that said it might be a good investment.
That's true. Hi, I'm Kenric. This is going to be a good investment.
Actually, you're right, though. He might be a good long-term investment right now. Like, I went to my comic
book.
Cheap. Yeah, I went to mycomicshop.com.
Yeah.
And there's ones on there that people are trying to sell for like $200. And it's just like, no. Not when you can go to eBay and buy the complete set for $15, and the guy is saying, he's saying they're very fine, and very fine is a good looking book.
Yeah, conditions subject, right? You need to find yourself when you buy comics, buy the condition you're happy with. Don't overpay because you want that near mint book. Buy one you're happy. Like, I don't buy near mint unless it happens to be one I buy because I don't give a shit.
That's right.
I buy a book that looks the way I'm happy with. Like or well, not my, but Katie's copy of Batman Adventures 12, the first Harley Quinn, it's a 7.5. Why is it 7.5? Because it was cheap and it looks the same as an 8.5. Looking at the book, there's no visual difference in looking at the book. It's arbitrary shit on the inside of the book that makes that point difference, and I don't care about that, honestly.
Right. And at that price, you could crack it open and send it back in if you really wanted to.
Oh, I could. I crack it open, I could probably get a higher grade out of it, or if I pressed it or whatever. I mean, it's a good looking book. I don't care.
Yeah, well, you should look at my 9.4. I swear to God, I could crack it open and probably get a 9.6 out of it if I wanted to.
Probably.
But, I mean, I'm not going to. I'm happy with what it is. And that's a good example of paying too much for a book, because I bought it at the height of its popularity. A year ago, right? The movie had just come out. Everybody was high on Harley Quinn again. She's always been a popular character since the moment they introduced her in the cartoon.
Oh, yeah, but she's surged high in the last 5 years, and she's leveled out, but I guarantee you, right now she's level. So if you want to buy her books for investment, buy them now, because they will go up again. Yeah,
they will. Yeah, long-term wise, she's going to always spike every couple years, or every 3 or 4 years, she's going to go up. I happen to buy it at the wrong time, because I bought right when Suicide Squad came out, and everybody was buying.
To do it.
Yeah, but
I told you not to do it.
Yeah, but it had a good.
It worked out.
You didn't tell me not to do it.
You wanted to buy it.
You never told me. No, you did not. You said, "Oh, what are you getting?" And I was like, "I'm getting this." You're like, "Oh, I want that book. I so want that book." That's what you told me.
I said I want that book, but I said I wouldn't pay that for it. I said it's too much. It's too much.
Well, yeah, you might have said that, but you didn't tell me not to buy it. You just said you wouldn't buy it. There's a difference there.
Well, I figured you would say, "Oh, if Johnny's not going to buy it, he's definitely smarter than me on comics. I should listen to him."
Yeah, that'll never happen. But yeah, okay. Yeah. But
I know
that's a mistake on my end, right? Because if I sold it today, I'd lose half my money.
Yeah.
I'd have to wait.
But if you sold it in 5 years, you'd probably make more money off of it.
Right. That's a long-term investment. I knew. Yeah. I knew I was taking a gamble, right? I knew that even though it was at that, I didn't think it would drop as much as it has, because it's dropped quite a bit, actually.
Yeah.
Right. And so
it'll go back up.
Yeah, but it's dropped a lot, like hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's okay because like I said, it's a long-term investment. So I know in 10 years that book will probably be worth $2,000, if not more.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you, Kenric. I want to know if you're okay with me doing this. I have a letter from my dad about comic books. I wanted to find a place on the show to read, and I think this is the perfect episode for it.
Okay.
So to preface this letter that my dad wrote, this is a letter my dad wrote and sent to somebody who had bought something from our business on eBay and had basically sent a very nasty email to my sister and me about the grading of a comic book and how we were, I think his exact words, that we were a bunch of fucking morons who didn't know how to deal with comic books and that he wanted his money back and he was going to report us and all this shit. So this is the letter my dad wrote back to him. And I think it's very poignant for this episode. That's why I've kind of brought it up. Here we go. Sir, I am the father of the young people who put the 3 books in question on eBay. I can understand, after checking the latest Overstreet, why you think the price was overstated. However, the opening bid price is below the price of the comic books in the Overstreet. An error may have been made in the total value, but the grade is clearly stated, and the picture should be enough so anyone bidding on the books would know what they are getting. Now, to explain a little bit, is we would take multiple pictures of a book, of the corners, especially if it was an older book. So we would say this book, how we would say is we would say, we grade this book at a very fine plus, but please use the pictures to determine your own grade of the book. Because we're not professional graders, you need to look at the book and make your own decision, because grading is subjective, especially if it's not in a case. That's how we used to do it. So we have pictures up there, and this guy was saying that we were overpricing the book and that it was ridiculous and all this kind of stuff. I go on with my dad here. Just to let you know, I also know comics because out of this letter again, one of the things this guy was saying to us was that he was a professional comic buyer and seller and that he knew all about comics and that he was an expert in comic books. Just so you know, I also know comic books. I have been collecting, trading, and selling comics since 1969, a few years before the first printing of the Overstreet Guide, because this guy who was selling was very much stating Overstreet, which 2003, 2004, Overstreet was still a big deal. Anymore, Overstreet's kind of a passe thing that doesn't really matter anymore. I have amassed a complete collection of Superman, and I have bought and sold so many Marvel collections that I have lost track of how many. I was the one who first informed Bob Overstreet that Superboy number 27 was rare and almost impossible to find in near mint condition. I was also the one who questioned at the San Diego Comic Convention the price raise in cowboy comics that the market didn't seem to warrant. It seems that 5 or 6 key dealers had a large backlog of cowboy comics at the time. I also called Overstreet on the rapid rise of the Spirit collections that happened right after he completed his collection. Bob has done very well with his price guide, but most of the prices in the books are estimates. Bob told me that $1,000 plus books don't sell every year. Remember he said. Bob told me that most $1,000 plus books don't sell every year, and he makes an estimate based on how the rest of the series has been selling and what 5 or 6 key dealers have the book priced at. I can show you overvalued books and undervalued books in every issue of the guide from 1971 to 2001. One of the fun things to do with comics is to pick up some of the undervalued books and then make a case to Bob that he's got them underpriced, and then watch them go up from the guide. Case in point, Howard the Duck number 1, Overstreet had priced at $3 in 1976, $7.50 in 1977, and then $12 in 1978. A lot of dealers were telling Bob that book had very low distribution. I had 500 copies. One of the big dealers on the West Coast tipped me off that they were working on Overstreet to get the price up. I traded them for some very nice Golden Age stuff. The current price of Howard the Duck number 1 in 2001 is $20. So that book did not have a good investment because it didn't really have a low distribution. It was a bunch of dealers telling Overstreet to gouge the price up. So this is one of the dangers back before there was eBay, because there was one book. This is outside the letter. This is one of the dangers of eBay, or of the Overstreet book, because it was subjective to what certain dealers said, or certain consultants told Bob what Bob Overstreet would price things at, because you'd have rise and falls of comic books that were very arbitrary. Like my dad put it out here, the cowboy comics that a bunch of dealers had a bunch of, they raised the price on to say so people would think that they were rare, so people would then want to buy them, when really they weren't rare. Nobody should really care about them because there was tons of them.
That's right.
Anyways.
Well, eBay has kind of given you that barometer now, kind of like the stock market, where you can actually see what the market will bear on what people are paying.
Right. All right, back to letter. Since you mentioned the CGC in your email, and most of the books you bid on are CGC books, I might as well let you know my opinion of that fine service. And here's the fun part, because we talked about this on our CGC episode. This kind of gives you what my dad thought about it.
Yeah.
It has turned over a hobby that used to have an open market to money-hungry dealers. So basically, it's what he's saying is that it's taken a hobby that people would love to buy and sell and make money off to now it's basically you have dealers who are only in it to make money and trying to get the most money they can out of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, back to letter. I see graded books overpriced, with the dealer using the population report as justification for the highest price. I have books in my own collection that, when matched with some of the 9.5 best ever graded that I've seen on eBay, that would have to grade at least an 11. Basically saying that they're saying it's the best grade ever, but if he has books that look better, what's the deal with that? And then he goes on, baseball cards are going down the same road right now, with graded Barry Bonds cards going for $300-$400 or more. This is back when, before the whole steroid thing with Barry Bonds, when he was breaking the records and everybody thought he was, still a decent guy.
Yeah, we got it.
Well, some people don't know, all right?
It's just cracking me up because you keep reading like 2 lines and then you break yourself.
Well, shut up. That's how I do things.
It's all good, dude. It sounds good. No, keep going.
I have 25 or 30 of those Barry Bonds cards packed away. They're just as good or better than the ones on eBay, but, whatever. I don't care. True collectors could care less about CGC. By the way, have you ever seen a CGC graded slab that has a graded book removed and another one put in its place? I know the guy who did it. He sold the book in Portland just to prove it could be done. He returned the money and got the book back and pissed off a lot of dealers that day. That was my dad that did that. He was talking about himself. I remember him doing that. Him and my brother-in-law popped open a CGC case, changed the book inside, changed the top label, and then sold it to somebody at the convention.
Oh, they didn't get caught.
No, he sold. Well, no, he sold it to him, got the money, and then as he walked away, I went, hold on, you gave him back his money and got the book back. I said, look, here's what you just bought, and here's why these are dangerous. Because my dad was making a case for why at the time CGC cases were really easy to open up and swap things in and out of.
Right. Okay, so, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, that person he knew who did it was him. In closing, send an email calling someone a liar over something that may just be a mistake is not a good way to start a dialogue. The price of any collectible is whatever you can get for it. If the books in question don't sell or sell at the overstated price, then you were right, and your estimate or your statement that the estimate value was wrong. But if the market pays more than the overstated price, then overshoot is wrong. However, any book that is sold, the buyer is unhappy, can be returned, and a full refund would be made, including the shipping costs both ways. We have never had a comic returned in all the years we were doing that. And then he goes, P.S. If you want to ping somebody, why not try the guy who has an oversized Action number 1 reprint on eBay right now? Nowhere in his description does it say that it's a reprint, or does it say that it's the oversized book. It just says that it has copyright 1939 on the inside cover. Yours truly, John Horsley.
What did the guy reply?
No, he never replied. As you can tell, my dad and I have a lot of the same thoughts about comics. I mean, obviously, that's where I got them from. I thought that was a good letter to read on this episode because it's about investing. It talks about kind of like the ebb and flow, and really, right now is a great time to be investing because it's really hard to be duped because you have the power of eBay to look things up and to see what things sell for here and there.
Yeah, big time. I mean, that is a huge tool for people to have.
Right, and like I used to love, I have almost a full collection of all the Overstreet guides from number one, which old Overstreet guides are worth money now, which is weird. I think that number one's worth a couple $100, which is crazy because it's a price guide, right?
Yeah, but it's a price guide in the comic book realm, and you know how the comic book realm works. Come on.
Right, it's a collectible now, So, here, yeah, rare 1970 Overstreet comic book price guide number one, fine condition, $595.
How much?
For the first one.
$595?
Yeah, for the first issue, or the first copy of the price guide, which I have one down. I wonder if
that price is like in 30. The Overstreet.
Right. You can price the guides in the price guide. It's a price guide,
yeah.
Which is crazy.
I'm trapped in an infinite loop.
Right. An infinite loop of price guides and price guides. Ultimately, I think buying and selling comics, it's subjective to what you want, but you have to make sure that you're paying something you're comfortable with and that you're not getting it over your head. And the best way to invest in anything, whether it's comic books, baseball cards, cars, whatever, is make sure that what you're buying is not just strictly for it's worth money, but it's something you enjoy. So if you enjoy comic books, and investing in comic books is great. If you enjoy baseball cards, and investing in baseball cards is a great idea. But just make sure you're not buying at the hype of something. You're buying either before the hype, or you understand that you need to see what it's worth and try and find it for less. Look for things that are less. Set up alerts on eBay for yourself. Set up alerts on Craigslist. Go to cons and say, okay, this book's worth $100. I'm not going to pay more than $50 for it, or whatever. Set your own price limits for the investment. So otherwise, if you're paying current value for it, you will never get your money out of it because you're going to be, you will a long term, but you want to make sure that you buy it lower so you can then make money off of it, and you'll be happier that way, I think. And part of the fun of investing in buying comic books is the hunt and trying to find it for a price you're happy with.
That is a true statement right there, is the hunt. I don't 100% agree with everything you say because I think there's a difference in mentality on the long-term investment and the short-term investment.
Oh, right. Yeah, there is.
Like if long-term and you really love the book and you really love the character and all that, then paying street value of what it is today, I don't think is that big a deal, especially if you believe it's going to be worth whatever in the future, right? And you're going to either double your money or what that percentage, what is that percentage that you're willing to bear is going to be, right? Be it 20% or 3,000%, and whatever it is. And then the short-term site of, I want to sell this because I want to make, I'm going to buy it for 10, I'm going to sell it for 40, right? So then at that point, then you need to find a way to buy it at the lowest possible point that you can. And they're out there. You can do it, You can find the garage sales. They're there. They're not as prevalent as people like to think they are.
They're not. But they're there.
But they're there. You can find people on eBay and Craigslist and Facebook and all these different places to find what you want to get and get it for a price that makes sense. I think if you're going to do the short-term investment, think about buying runs. Think about buying collections as a whole. Then you can find. If you have the time,
collections. If you have the time, buying collections is the way to go to get things for cheap.
Yep, that's the cheapest way you're going to get. But you're going to spend more, but you're going to get more for your buck.
Yeah, and your overall cost of the books you want to keep will be less that way.
That's right. So there you go. That's how we do our things.
That's how you do. Ultimately, have fun with it.
Yeah, I think that's really important. If you're going to get into collecting and be in that collecting mentality, and you want to get into something that's fun, you got to make sure that you like the product.
Right.
Because if you don't like the product and you just go in, then you're never going to have fun with it, and it's just going to be a droll. You know what I mean? You're not going to like it. And, and I think most people don't do that because if you don't like it, you're not going to get into it. But comic books is a fun medium to get into, and because you interact with it so much. Baseball cards to me and basketball cards and football cards. Like I collected football cards for a while, and I had some baseball cards back in the 80s, and I had basketball cards a lot in the 90s. But
I had Shaquille O'Neal cards up the yin yang. So I thought he was the best thing ever in the 90s.
Yeah, Scottie Pippen. Yeah, I just but at the end of the day, you look at him, and then that's it. There's no interaction with it really.
It's a piece of cardboard. I mean,
Yeah.
it's ultimately it's a piece of cardboard with a picture on it, and there's nothing more to it that some stats in the back, but really it's nothing more than that.
Right.
And
Right.
I was big into baseball cards and comic book cards in the 90s, and I loved buying packs of cards. I mean, even now, getting a box of cards and opening up and putting a set together, it's still a lot of fun, but it's not money conducive, because ultimately I'm going to end up paying a lot more money than what I can ever sell things for, or I'm going to put it into a set and never look at it again.
That's right. I mean, you can get into Magic. Magic the Gathering is a really good investment right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
I love Magic cards.
Yeah, there's like Milk Geek Comics, man. Those guys live off their Magic stuff.
A lot of comic shops live off their tournaments and for Magic because it brings in a lot of money and it brings people into the shop.
Yeah, and the values of those books keep going, or those cards keep going up, and people are willing to spend that money on them. It's a good thing. So, there's lots of stuff out there to go out there. What we went through today is how, and what Johnny described a lot in how he does his work on collecting and investing and getting out there is very similar to how I do it.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting. It's interesting that way, because I think a lot of people do it that way to varying degrees, because ultimately you've got to know what you're getting into.
That's right. That's right. So if anybody's out there actually listening to this and they have questions, feel free to tweet us or feel free to email us at spoilercountry@gmail.com. If you got a question on what you think and how you should go about either buying a collection or selling your collection or whatever, we'll help you.
Yeah, we'll happily talk to you about that and give you any pointers we can.
Yeah.
Or if you think we're totally wrong, we're glad to talk about that too.
That's right. But we've been pretty successful at what we do, so you can take it with a grain of salt. Put it that way.
Right. That's a show, man. I think it's a show.
You did the intro. You do the outro.
So you can listen to us everywhere on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, TuneIn, everywhere. Play FM. Anywhere podcasts are, you can probably find us there. Just search Spoiler Country, you'll find us there. You can hit us up on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. We have a Facebook page, and we don't really use that as much as we should, because we're mostly active on Twitter for talking and Instagram for posting some pictures and stuff here and there. We are going to be at Jet City Comics Show in Tacoma on the 4th and 5th. I have a table there selling artwork and comics. Kenric's going to be there doing some interviews with me. We're going to walk around and talk to people. It's going to be fun. We're going to be at Emerald City Comic Con in March. I ended up getting a pro badge, which is awesome. I registered for one with my art and my writing, and they gave me a pro badge. And then Kenric's going to come on the weekend, and we're going to do what we always do at cons and do con reports, talk about the show, talk to people there, and just have fun with them, let you know how it's going, and try and meet some new creators and hopefully get some new books to review that we find that are interesting and look cool to have. If you're on iTunes, hit us up with a review. Get us a 5-star review. Tell us what you think of the show. Tell us what we're doing right, or just say, hey, this is awesome. I don't care. If you don't want to give us a 5-star review, email us and tell us what we can do to make our show better.
Keep those 4 stars away, review. Man. Don't do it. Just go 5.
Yeah.
Why do you give me 4?
Exactly. We have a survey that you can take to help us get better. It'll be in the link of the show. Take that if you have time. It really helps us to develop our show to make it better for you, the listener. Ultimately, we're going to do the show. We have fun with it, but we want to know what you want.
That's right. So you can find that survey really easy. If you don't see the show notes, because not everybody does, because you're listening on your phone and you probably don't actually read the show notes all the time. But if you don't read the show notes and you want to take the survey, we really appreciate it. You can go to spoilercountrypod.com, and then if you scroll down to right before the podcast list actually starts, right above that, you'll see the link to enter the survey, and we'd really appreciate it, because it really does help us out.
And I also set up a bit.ly for it. So you can go to bit.ly/scpodfeedback, and that'll take you right to the survey. If you want to support the show, you want to support what we do here to keep us going, to keep just telling us you love what we do or whatever, you can do it in 2 ways. The first way is going to patreon.com/spoilercountry, kicking $1 a month, whatever you want to get on our list, like wonderful Kevin Joseph is, and help support the show that way. You can also, in the link of the show and on our website, everywhere you go, we have an Amazon affiliate link. All you do is click on that, log into Amazon, buy whatever you're going to buy anyways, and we get a cut out of that. That helps pay for website hosting duties and buying equipment and getting us to shows and stuff like that. It's very easy for you, very, very low intensive for you to do that, because you're just buying stuff on Amazon like you always do anyways.
That's perfect.
Yeah, I think we're done, man.
I think we're done.
Out. I'm going to go make dinner.
Johnny did the intro and the outro, and out of 35 shows, I think you've done it 3 times. So
and I think I talked the most in the show too.
This was great. I liked it. I was able to do other things. I could pick my nose on this one and not have to worry about it. Man. Yeah, I could multitask. It was great. Are you kidding me? No, you did a great job on the intro and outro. Man. Thanks. All right, guys, we're out of here. Peace.